Xiomara Castro was sworn in as the first woman president of Honduras this Thursday in a historic event attended by many world leaders. The Argentine government has stressed that payment of more than $700 million to the International Monetary Fund by Friday will depend on the progress of negotiations for a new credit program. In his first major public appearance, the leader of Burkina Faso's new military junta called on the international community for support. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Honduras, Xiomara Castro was sworn in as the first woman president of the Central American nation on Thursday. January 27th marked the culmination of a remarkable rise to power that began just over 12 years ago when Castro led a massive protest movement in response to the ousting of her husband, former President Manuel Zelaya, in a military coup in 2009. After 12 years of corruption and increasing poverty, Xiomara Castro secured a landslide victory in the November elections to become the most voted for president in Honduran democratic history in an election that saw a record turnout of 68% of the electoral roll. Addressing the Honduran people and international guests gathered at the National Stadium for her inauguration ceremony, President Xiomara Castro emphasized that this historic moment was only possible thanks to the support of the Honduran people.
200 years go by from the first moment in which our independence was proclaimed. We are breaking chains here, and we are breaking traditions here. These historical moments could only appear from the majorities, from the will of the majority of the population, and thank to the Honduras people this was possible.
The newly installed president also stated her willingness to establish dialogue and her promise to defend the rights of all Honduran women and girls, especially against violence.
Our vision of the world places the human being in the front and above the market. We have the best disposition and spirit of dialogue. No more violence against women. I move forward with all my strength to close the gap and generate the conditions so that our girls can develop to the full and live in the country free and without violence. To the Honduras women, I am not going to fail to you. I am going to defend your rights. I'm going to defend all of your rights, and you may be sure of that. Until victory forever.
President Xiomara Castro also described the kind of state and country she expects to achieve with her government.
Built to ensure the inhabitants of the nation the enjoyment of justice, freedom, culture, and the well-being and the economic well-being. And as a result, we have the duty to restore the economic system over the basis of transparency, efficiency in production, and social justice in the distribution of wealth and national incomes.
Likewise, the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros greeted the new president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, after her inauguration in the Central American country.
We witnessed a very beautiful event. Celia and I were personally watching TeleSUR the inauguration of President Xiomara Castro de Zelaya, President of Honduras, who has today assumed her constitutional presidential rank for the refounding of Honduras. From Venezuela, we send a great greeting to the people of Honduras. To President Xiomara Castro, a new age has begun for the people of Honduras after 12 years of the coup. Today,
the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros praised TeleSUR for covering the events in Honduras since the overthrow of former President Manuel Zelaya in 2009.
Always through TeleSUR. Always, TeleSUR was the great medium to present and denounce the coup d'état of 28 June 2009. TeleSUR was the great medium to show resistance in the streets of the people of Honduras to the coup d'état of Micheletti and of American imperialism, as was later demonstrated in the statements of the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, who accepted that she organized and led the coup against Manuel Zelaya. TeleSUR was the medium to show the people's struggle years after year, and TeleSUR was the first medium to give the bulletin when President Xiomara Castro was elected by the people of Honduras.
Likewise, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros affirmed that the project orchestrated from abroad, which tried to impose a parallel presidency in the country, is likely the greatest political failure in the 200 years of history in the country.
An unsuccessful attempt to impose on Venezuela a parallel president appointed from Washington and Bogota. I think it's already a page past failure. Failure may be Donald Trump's Frankenstein project. Call it Juan Guaido, be the greatest political failure of 200 years of republic, of some political leader, of some political sector in the country. We may have to analyze then in history that the political failure to try to impose on Venezuela a president that no one had elected.
The National Ballet of Cuba returns to the stages and prepares for its first national tour in 2022. After the pause imposed by COVID-19, the Ballet Nacional de Cuba, the BNC, today prepares its first national tour of 2022, scheduled to begin at the emblematic Sauto Theater in Matanzas. According to Biensay Valdez, dancer, choreographer, and general director of the institution, they will witness the fusion of experienced dancers and new acquisitions that will combine talent and rigor to the delight of the classical dance lovers. To this, we can add the language of the new generations of foreign choreographers, such as the renowned English choreographer Gemma Bond, who during the first rehearsal at the BNC headquarters shared details of future presentations. We'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. The Argentine government has stressed that the payment of more than $700 million to the International Monetary Fund by Friday will depend on the progress of negotiations with the financial institution for a new credit program. President Alberto Fernandez has expressed confidence that an agreement will be reached before the Friday deadline and insisted that economic growth will not be compromised.
In the next few hours, because of all depends on how the negotiation that is being carried out progresses. It is a negotiation. There are times that it takes place day by day, and there are times where it takes place hour by hour, as it is right now. And it is a negotiation that is led by the President of the nation with the Minister of Economy, Martín Guzmán. They are the ones who know the exact moment and the exact point in which the negotiation is. This growth, this path of growth is what Argentina is defending. The Argentine government has a predisposition. It has the will to reach an agreement that allows it to pay in a sustainable way the debt that the government of Mauricio Macri contracted with International Monetary Fund.
The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean has estimated that the number of people living in extreme poverty in the region rose by around 5 million between 2020 and 2021. The increase brings the total number of people in Latin America and the Caribbean living in extreme poverty to 86 million, in a region that was highly vulnerable to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has deepened the social and health crisis. According to the UN Commission, the rate of the increase in extreme poverty represents a 27-year setback in progress. Brazil and Costa Rica were the countries most affected by poverty due to cuts in state aid. Along with poverty, inequality also increased in Latin America between 2019 and 2020, breaking a downward trend since 2002. Women have again been the most affected, with rising unemployment rates representing an 18-year setback in the levels of their participation in the labor force.
When we go back to 2021, look at 2021. It is assumed that there was a great economic recovery of 6.2% of the GDP. Since there was a 27-year setback in the increase in extreme poverty in 2021, we went from 13.1 to 13.8. That is from 81 million to 86 million people in extreme poverty. The pandemic caused a forceful exit, especially for women, from the labor market. I think that women and young people, as we will see later, have suffered the harshest consequences because one of two, either they have not found a job, or the women who have had an exit from the labor market have entered job insecurity with loss of income and increased burden of care work.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stressed that the United States' response to Moscow's security demands over Ukraine has not addressed its main concern on the possibility of the neighboring country joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but noted that it will be possible to continue with further talks on the issue.
As for the content of the document, there is a response which gives hope for the start of a serious conversation on secondary questions. But in this document, there was no positive response to the main question. The main issue is our clear position on the inadmissibility of further expansion of NATO to the east and the deployment of strike weapons that could threaten the territory of the Russian Federation. This position did not come out of nowhere.
A Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson reiterated that Moscow has no intention of attacking Ukraine.
We have repeatedly stated that our country doesn't plan to attack anyone. We consider even a thought about war between our peoples unacceptable.
Russians have also shared their thoughts about the fear created by the West over a possible attack on Ukraine.
We are Slavic. It's not acceptable. There are no threats from the territory of the Ukrainian state. Therefore, I believe it doesn't make sense. I understand there is a risk of full-scale war, but I believe that the parties will manage to negotiate all their disagreements and come to a consensus. People should always have a right for self-determination and choose their way themselves, but it should definitely be solved peacefully. Every reasonable person is afraid of war, and no one has ever benefited from it.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. In his first major public appearance, the leader of Burkina Faso's new military junta called on the international community for support. Paul-Henri Sandaogo de Miba stated on Thursday that the country needs its international partners now more than ever on the eve of a summit on the Economic Community of West African States that could see sanctions imposed. President Roch Marc Christian Kabore was ousted by the soldiers, calling themselves the Patriotic Movement for Safeguarding and Restorations. Also, at the beginning of the week, on the back of public anger at the failure to stem extremist violence ravaging the vast nation. Earlier on Thursday, around 20 trade union leaders met for about a half an hour with the junta in the capital. On Wednesday, the MIBA met ministers of Cabore's government, which, like the parliament, has been dissolved. Burkina Faso joins two other West African countries, Mali and Guinea, where coups have taken place in the past 18 months, both of which have been sanctioned.
Conduiront à terme vers des décisions consensuelles et inclusives pour la refondation.
His march towards development. I give you the firm assurance that our commitment is no way aimed towards the reestablishment of any kind of old order, but is inspired by all the legitimate demands of the Burkina people. I have begun consultations with certain components of the nation, including people in the governing regime, in order to identify the main lines that will eventually lead us to consensual and inclusive decisions for the rebuilding and restoration of lasting peace.
The Syrian government continues to promote international investment in order to fuel its economic recovery after years of Western-imposed terrorist war. Our correspondent, Xiomara Castro, brings us more details.
Under the title Technology of Vital Projects and Finance, the third edition of the economic meeting of the Syrian International Investment Development Institute concluded in Damascus on Wednesday, January 26. After 2 days of discussions, local participants and from many Arab and foreign countries agreed on the need to proceed with the activation of advanced scientific technology in vital projects for Syria's economic recovery and reconstruction. We cannot lag behind in the face of the accelerated global technological development, and we must work to achieve this development and apply it to the service of the economy, which is the basis for the construction of society. And for this reason, we have insisted on organizing this meeting to consolidate the use of technology in the service of the economy. Attracting investments and raising capital are also among the main goals of the economic meetings in Damascus. The two factors are essential to advance in the reconstruction projects of the destroyed areas and the sabotage infrastructure. In particular, the electrical service facilities, healthcare facilities, education and water resources, and drinkable water. These are vital sectors whose rehabilitation requires some $200 billion, and their acquisition clashes with the European and U.S. commercial and financial blockade.
Among our objective is the goal of granting small loans for the implementation of small and medium-sized projects of local investors who have sufficient capital, and in this way we can help them develop their projects and create new jobs opportunities.
We seek to promote joint and gradual work without waiting until full security and stability are restored in the country, so that we take advantage of the possibilities at hand for implementation of vital and strategic projects and to create a suitable environment for investment in all areas and throughout the country. The terrorist war and the Western blockade caused economic losses of around $500 billion, a harsh reality that the Syrian authorities are trying to overcome by activating economic cooperation with friendly countries, rehabilitating and starting up the vast majority of the 132 existing industrial facilities in the country, reactivating the general capacities of the industrial zones and creating a safe environment for investment in all fields.
support.teleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
Thank you, Hicham, for this report, and we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.